Hello, welcome back to the channel, and we are back with the series on Mirelurks. So currently we are inside the Anchorage War Memorial, where we've come across this Mirelurk Hunter with his really large claws and thicker and tougher looking carapace. So today we're going to look at some of the different varieties of Mirelurk that are kind of separate from the kind of crab-like ones. So this is a Fallout 3 Mirelurk Hunter. The Mirelurk Hunters in Fallout 4 take the form of lobsters rather than crabs. And then we've also got the Mirelurk Kings, the Swamplurks of Point Lookout, and the Lakelurks that we find in Lake Mead and around the Colorado River in Fallout New Vegas. So there's a few different variations and things that have come up in the games, and they're definitely quite interesting. We've got this kind of symbiotic relationship between them all. A little bit so I can get a better look at you. I'll take some rad away so I don't these books as well. So there we go. I've no idea what I've discovered here, but there's apparently a lot more to this place than I ever knew. But here we have the Mirelurk King of the Fallout 3 generation. So you can see the look is quite different from the crab-like version. So these guys have these long kind of reinforced necks. They have what appear to be like teeth, but could also be like a beak from like a turtle or something. They've got sort of webbing and fins on their arms and claws. The Lakelurks that you find in New Vegas are basically a reskinned version of these. They do have like a kind of sonic attack that they can attack from distance. So there's no shell like with the crab-like Mirelurks, but they do have quite a thick reinforced skin with all these kind of spikes and things that give them some protection. And if we that's target just to see. So like them all, the head is the weak point, the face is the weak point. But these guys are the highest kind of level that you find in this game, so they are quite tough. Even so, like, no, it's only a hunting rifle, but really, you know, not very much damage. But the head is the vulnerable spot if you attack these guys. So these are the higher level ones, so you generally won't see them around until you're kind of at the sort of higher level, generally from about level 15 up, I think, because before the DLC the kind of level cap was 20, so anything above 15 is considered kind of high level. Oh, that sounded, yeah, actually this time I think more Swamplurk. There we go. So they have the kind of Mirelurk King asset, but more green and some bright yellow eyes. There are like crab-like Swamplurks as well that basically are reskinned Mirelurk Hunters. Location that we're looking for. Give me a second. So yeah, like your other kind of Mirelurk species, they do tend to gravitate to the water. There's some. So from a distance you can kind of see they do look humanoid. It does appear that these guys are thought to originate from snapping turtles. It's one thing that's often, the words tortoise and turtle are used interchangeably, but generally speaking, turtles are aquatic, tortoises live on land, and snapping turtles are known for their powerful jaws and the fact that they can extend their neck quite significantly, certainly in terms of their kind of hands and feet. You know, the webbing and the long sharp claws, that's kind of something that you would see in a lot of aquatic species, turtles and things especially. And they do kind of look like they have teeth, whereas turtles actually, and snapping turtles, have a beak, so it's a lot more like a bird's beak, which can be very sharp, and their jaws are surprisingly strong, so you know, it can be quite painful. And they've got kind of fins and spikes on their arms, and these as kind of protective covering, so they don't have a shell like Mirelurks do, but they do have some thickened kind of spikes and things which would offer some degree of protection. And you do get turtle species that are soft shelled, so they don't have a hard carapace on them, but they have a more leathery, like your leatherback turtles for example. It's a more leathery kind of skin that covers them, that gives them some protection, but not as much as a proper shell would, like you see with, for example, your red-eared terrapins, yellow belly sliders, and with tortoises, where they have a solid carapace and plastron that's made out of hardened keratin, so the same material that makes up hair, that makes up fingernails and claws, and even things like a rhinoceros's horn. It's the same, that same protein that makes up the shells of turtles and things, but you do get some that don't have a hard shell, and they have sort of thicker skin instead. Their faces are very unnerving because they're so human-like with their eye placement and things. So like many animals, normal sort of turtles and things, they tend to have eyes on either side of their head if they're potentially prey species. So this evolution would fit with the fact that these guys are more predatory than prey. But yeah, we've got quite a few of them hanging around. As I say, like with all these videos, I turn the combat AI off because it's a lot easier to examine these things up close if they're not trying to kill you. But oh, you picked that one. But as you can see, even with the lack of a shell, these guys don't take that much don't take as much damage, whereas if you get them in the face and the head, they do take more damage. And that's certainly true for the majority of the kind of Mirelurk species that we come across, because I say, to my mind, the Mirelurk is a family of kind of crustaceans and kind of amphibious creatures. So there's even a little hint of a excuse the buckshot there, but a little hint of a tail, which would be quite typical for some kind of turtle, rather than, you know, sort of crabs and things that don't always have those, although I believe the horseshoe crab does have a tail. But yeah, this is the Lakelurks, so unsurprisingly, given the name, you tend to find them hanging around the lake. I think actually, there's this floating platform in the middle of the lake. So there's actually quite a lot of random things that you can do in and around Lake Mead, interestingly. You know, you come here for the Boomer's quest to get the bomber up. There's a underwater cave that leads into Camp Guardian, which is got a whole kind of unmarked NCR quest in it. You can see the fort in the distance. But yeah, so scavenger platform. So basically, some people decided to set up a kind of flotilla, I suppose you would call it, a sort of floating platform in the lake. You know, staying near the lake makes sense because the water here is nice and safe. It's rad-free water, but obviously there's nobody here but the lurks now, so it didn't go very well. But you can see that they kind of set up supplies. But yeah, so this is kind of Vegas's answer to the Mirelurks, and it makes sense that the kind of crab lake versions aren't here because they're Atlantic species, and they wouldn't do well in this climate. They need a colder climate, they need colder water than what you would find. Bottle cap. I'm guessing there's probably a star bottle cap buried under there somewhere. Obviously a sunset sarsaparilla delivery truck. I didn't realise that was there, but there we go. I say, still, after all this time, still learning new things about this game, and exploring and finding things. So yeah, there is a sunset sarsaparilla, so if you're really desperate for sunset sarsaparilla or empty sunset sarsaparilla bottles, then there you go. But yeah, so the kind of crab like Mirelurks probably wouldn't thrive here because it'd be too warm for them. If they're based on Atlantic species, you know, Nevada, California, this part of the world, it's going to be too warm for them. So, never mind about that flotilla then. It just disappeared. What? But yeah, so you can see them in the water. Where did... Oh, there it is, it's back. Yeah, so yeah, they kind of swim in the water and things, but they can't actually attack you while they're in the water. They can do their, I think they can do that sonic attack that the Mirelurk Kings in Fallout 3 do, but not, you know, they can't actually physically attack in water with their claws or anything like that. But I say they're definitely unpleasant looking, and I say just the fact that they've become very kind of humanoid. Yeah, but obviously you can see all the adaptations for mobility in the water with the kind of fins on their arms and things. Yeah, they do make creepy noises as well, so there we go, that's the Lakelurks of New Vegas. So a slightly different variant that may have evolved from some kind of turtle species, maybe a snapping turtle species or something like that, although they're quite different to anything that really exists in that family, so it's really quite hard to say exactly where they came from. So let's talk about the Mirelurk Hunters that we see in Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. They are clearly based on the American lobster, or the Atlantic lobster, Homarus americanus. This species of lobster is found along the Atlantic coast of North America, and it has many different names. It can reach a length of 64 centimetres, 25 inches, which is about 2 feet, and weigh up to 20 kilograms or 44 pounds, which makes it the heaviest crustacean and the heaviest living arthropod species in the world. They're normally a kind of bluish green to brown colour with red spines, but there is some variation in colours. They're uncommon south of New Jersey. Live red lobsters are rare. It's estimated to be about 1 in 10 million, so it's not far off being like a shiny Pokemon. They're quite rare, but they do turn red when they're cooked in boiling water. So these lobsters are closely related to Homarus gammarus, which is a European lobster species, and they can be artificially hybridised, but that doesn't occur in the wild because there's no overlap between their habitat ranges. The American species has spines on the underside of their faces. They have antennae which are long and act as olfactory sense organs, so essentially the sense of smell. They also have urinary bladders on either side of their head, and they can project their urine at a distance of up to 2 metres, which is over 6.5 feet. And that could be the source of the kind of acid spouts that we see in the Mirelurk queens, potentially. They also have large and asymmetric claws, so they have a large one which is called the crusher, and the smaller one is the cutter or gripper used for tearing apart their prey. So this means that they can be left or right-handed, essentially, depending on which side the crusher claw is on. In terms of their diet, they eat mollusks, echinoderms, which is things like sea urchins, starfish, and similar animals, other crustaceans, small fish, and jellyfish. In Maine, they have been known to eat herring, which is what they use in lobster traps to catch them. They were thought to be cannibalistic because they have been known to eat their molted exoskeleton. In terms of their kind of relationship to humans, they are a popular food item and certainly considered kind of a luxury delicacy kind of food. But they're usually cooked alive, which is considered inhumane and is now illegal in some parts of the world. They do have an organ which is called the tomale, and it functions kind of like a liver and pancreas combined. And that is something that is considered a delicacy in some places as well. In the US, Maine is the state that's the largest US producer of lobsters. They have traps and they have trawlers. In the area, scuba divers are prohibited from catching lobsters, and in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, they have to have a licence to be allowed to catch lobsters. So it is very heavily regulated, and animals that are too small or too large have to be released. Any females that are carrying eggs have a notch put in their tail to mark them as successful breeders, and then they're released back into the water to maintain the population. So here's a look at some of the varieties of Mirelurk Hunter that you might encounter in Fallout 4. So there's the standard Mirelurk Hunter, and you can see quite clearly how similar they look to the lobsters that I showed you before, except much bigger. This one's the albino Mirelurk Hunter, which actually has a really cool kind of iridescence to its exoskeleton. It's quite pretty actually. And then the glowing Mirelurk Hunter, these guys do give off radiation as well, so there you go. So let's take a look at the Mirelurk Kings of this generation of Fallout. So you can see they're a clear kind of redesign of the previous generation's Mirelurk Kings. They have this cloaking ability where they can turn invisible for a time, and they can sneak up on you, so something to be wary of, because these guys are fast and they are strong. They're they're much faster than the other kind of Mirelurk varieties, and they're pretty aggressive, but you can see they've got these kind of glowing eyes and these massive fins everywhere, and so extra reinforced bodies. They've got long tails as well. The wiki kind of describes these guys as mutated frogs. Most frogs don't really have tails, newts do, but definitely they look more amphibian than anything else. So, frogs, newts, that kind of thing seem to be a possibility, but they have obviously massively kind of evolved and mutated. They've got kind of thicker skin. Again, frogs typically have quite delicate skin, and they protect themselves with a mucus layer, whereas these guys clearly have kind of thickened skin that's a bit tougher. This one here's the Mirelurk Deep King, so that's the kind of highest level. They are the most dangerous, and they've got quite sharp looking, nasty looking teeth and glowing eyes, and I say that cloaking ability as well, which makes them extra creepy. So I don't really have a real life animal background for these guys, because it's really not clear exactly what they've originated from, but they are definitely things to be wary of, because while they're not crabs or crustaceans, they're called Mirelurks, and they do have a symbiotic relationship with with the other kind of types of Mirelurk. So they all kind of live together as a kind of mixed community, which is kind of nice in a way, but also slightly terrifying, just because these guys can really take you by surprise, and because they often do congregate in quite large mixed groups of different types. So definitely to be wary of when you're wandering about near the water in the wasteland. So that pretty much covers it for all the different kind of varieties of Mirelurk outside the kind of crab-like versions. I say we've got a wee, a kind of separate species that's very similar in the Mojave wasteland area, and then we've got the kind of swampy ones that live up in Point Lookout as well, and they've obviously adapted to that kind of water, although we do see in the game, especially if you have broken steel in Fallout 3, after the end game where you switch on the water purifier, you find that a lot of Mirelurks are dead because the water's too clean for them. They definitely have adapted to the radiation in the water and the water being polluted, so when the water is purified they can't survive in it, and they end up dying from it. The Mirelurk Kings, on the other hand, they can live on the land. They appear to have both gills and lungs, meaning that they can breathe in the air and breathe in the water, which is kind of unusual, but there are species that exist that can do that, such as the lungfish. So it's not kind of outside the realm of possibility, but it's certainly quite a unique kind of thing. So hopefully that's been interesting. I say they get quite creepy looking. The lobstery ones aren't so bad, but the Mirelurk Kings are definitely creepy, kind of swamp monster type appearance. So that's definitely a bit on the unpleasant side. But that is that's us covered everything there. So next time we are going to take a look at the Mirelurk Queens from Fallout 4, because they have kind of taken the role of one of the large terrifying enemies in the game, similar to the kind of dragons and things like that in Skyrim. So they're quite interesting in their behaviour, so we'll be actually doing a quest for President Garvey for a change, and we'll be going to retake the castle and have a look at the queens. We'll also pay a visit to Spectacle Island as well in that episode, so hopefully you'll join me for that. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting, and I'd love to hear any thoughts you have, any questions, any theories. Pop them in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a like, and if you want to see more, then subscribe to the channel. I do post Fallout related stuff 3 times a week at the moment, and I'm also posting progress and little bits and pieces about my novel writing journey as well. So if that sounds interesting to you, hit subscribe, and other than that, I'll see you all next time. Bye.